I just paid a whole bunch of money for seeds for my garden this year. And if I could save some from those to plant next year instead of buying everything again, that seems like a good idea. Hi everybody, welcome back to Bustling Home. To that end, I started looking for books that would help me learn how to save seeds because I have no idea what I'm doing, kind of like the rest of gardening. And there are two main books that came up. One of them is an older classic one called Seed to Seed. The other one is a newer one that kind of echoes the format. It's The Complete Guide to Saving Seeds. I couldn't find any comparison between the two to figure out which I should get, so I got both of them. Let's take a look inside these books and see how they compare. Let's start with looking at Seed to Seed. When you first open this up, there's a table of contents that gives some of the history of gardening, botanical classifications, pollination and flower structure. So it tells you all about how the plants pollinate with bees or wind or however. Maintaining varietal purity, which means making sure that your seeds produce what you think they will produce next year instead of cross-pollinating and producing some random hybrid. Seed cleaning methods, since different seeds need to be cleaned differently. And seed storage techniques so that your seeds still germinate next year and for subsequent years. Then it gets immediately into vegetable families. And I really like how this is organized by family, because that way you've got all of the onions and leeks together, even if it's like garlic, chives, and onions. If you just did it alphabetically by common name, you wouldn't see those in the same area of the book. So even if you have to refer to this table of contents before you find the plant you want, I think it's a very useful way to do it. And it continues on to the next page, even more plants, more plants. This almost seems like it's a guide for a national seed-saving organization rather than an independent book, which doesn't really make a difference if you're not part of the group. But it gives seed-saving organizations, references, a glossary, and then what is really useful is if you're trying to find something by common name, it has an index in the back of the book that gives you the common name and the page. So you still can find stuff by the common name. It's just in the back of the book instead of in the front of the book. Now let's take a look at one of the entries. Let's look at tomatoes. Here's the start of the entry for tomatoes. You can see that the inside is all black and white. The pictures are black and white, the text is black and white. It's basically a big wall of text. There's almost nothing to break it up besides a slight difference in font. It's kind of like making a book in Microsoft Word or some similar word processing program. So the headings are just a thick line with the botanical name and the common name. That's all that separates it. So it's kind of hard to find these title lines sometimes. Then it gives you the botanical names, some history of how it was domesticated, pollination, crossing, and isolation. So again, how to keep your seed lines pure. Seed production, harvest, and processing. And in the case of tomatoes, it gives a step-by-step picture process on how to process them, because tomato seeds are encased in gel and you have to clean the gel off to store the seeds. You notice when you buy the seeds from the store, they're never covered in gunk. So it's very useful to have a detailed explanation of how to do that so you don't end up with just rotting, moldy seeds next year. It gives some seed statistics, like how long the seeds should remain viable under ideal storage conditions, what the accepted germination rate is for the seeds, which is 75% for tomatoes, and approximately how many seeds per gram or per ounce, so that you know how many seeds you get in a packet, or you can just weigh them and approximate how many seeds you have. Then it tells you how to grow the tomatoes, which is extremely useful even if you're not saving seeds. I have not found a better guide to how to grow these plants than this book. It gives you how long before frost to start it, what conditions to start it in as far as temperature, how long it takes for it to germinate, and how to transfer it out to the garden, how much sun it needs, how far apart they should be planted. It gives you everything. In addition to that, it has regional growing recommendations for the United States only, unfortunately, but it has to be limited somewhere so that it fits in the book. It splits it into Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast and Gulf Coast, Upper Midwest, Southwest, Central West Coast, and Maritime Northwest. So let's look at Upper Midwest since that's where I am. It says it can be started in a greenhouse between April 1st and May 1st, and then transplanted into the garden between May 15th and June 15th. It can be started in a greenhouse about April 1st and transplanted into the garden about May 15th. Both species like full sun and average water. So it tells you the sun, the water, when to plant it, when to move it. It gives you everything you need. Now, Seed to Seed uses pictures very sparingly. This is the introduction, which has an entire wall of text, one pretty much decorative picture of the author, then another pretty much decorative picture, which is blurry because it's probably an older picture, and it doesn't really add anything to the actual content of the book. And then it's wall of text with subheadings just in all caps with space around them. And that's how this entire book is organized. It's just mostly walls of text. Now, the walls of text are extremely useful. They have a lot of information in them. It'd be nice to have some pictures to illustrate some of it, but the way it's written is very clear as it is. So it's not a huge detriment that it doesn't have pictures illustrating everything. Now let's take a look at the Complete Guide to Saving Seeds, which is sometimes described as an update to Seed to Seed. And that's not to say that it is in all ways better than Seed to Seed. Of course, it's more colorful, both on the outside and on the inside, and it has more pictures, but it doesn't have quite the variety of vegetables that Seed to Seed does. However, it does include herbs and flowers, nuts, fruits, and woody ornamentals. So it covers a wider range of plants, just not some of the vegetables. Although most of the common vegetables are included in this book. The one that I couldn't find that I'm growing this year is ground cherries. Let's take a look inside. In the table of contents, it starts fairly similar, that there are general explanations of how to grow seeds and how to harvest and clean them and store them. It goes over seed biology, growing plants for seeds, if you have to do anything different for the plants than you would do just growing them to eat, harvesting and cleaning seeds, seed storage know-how, which is how long do the seeds last, getting the moisture right, getting the temperature right, storage recommendations, good places to store seeds. So it's a more specific chapter title would be useful, but at least they have these details right below so you know what the chapter is about. All about germination, so how to optimize germination, sowing seeds and raising transplants, and breeding your own varieties. This is something that's not as well covered, if at all, in Seed to Seed. So if you are aiming to breed your own varieties, this book would probably be a better bet. Then it has a separate chapter for saving vegetable seeds, saving herb seeds, saving flower seeds, and nuts, fruits, and woody ornamentals. In the appendix, they also go over a history of seed saving and selling in North America. So they do have a little bit of history, but not nearly as much as Seed to Seed. Now, a big plus with this book is that it has colored illustrations like this that shows you how to make your own threshing tools. And this has a somewhat less detailed explanation of how to process the seeds, because the threshing is only a couple of small paragraphs. Heat treatment is 1 paragraph. Cleaning seeds from fruits is only 2 paragraphs. It doesn't give much detail. There's no more detail on this in the later chapters with each of the types of plants. So granted, seed saving isn't supposed to be that complicated, but I would like a little bit more information on how to do this, especially as a beginner. Let's take a look at the tomato entry to compare directly to Seed to Seed. In here, it starts with a very obvious green line with a dark green heading, so it's much easier to find the tomato section or any section in this book. It has a very well organized botanical name, family, plant type, seed viability, and save seed from, as far as how many plants you want to save the seeds from. It tells you about flowering, isolation requirements, seed collection, seed cleaning. Gives a little bit more about seed cleaning here, but not enough to actually understand the process as well as you would from Seed to Seed. Seed treatment, germination, but it doesn't give the germination rates, it only gives the germination temperatures, and transplanting. So it includes most of the same information, and it's organized better in here and written much more briefly, but there are some details missing that I would really like to have in here. And one thing that I did notice in the tomato section in particular is it says that the optimal germination temperature for tomato seeds is 65 degrees to 75 degrees, which is definitely not correct. However, I know it's a typo, not a complete mistake on the author's part, because back here, where it has a table of the optimal temperatures for starting seeds, tomatoes are listed in the 85 to 90 degree box. So that was just a typo in the tomato section. However, if somebody only looks at this entry, they might start their seeds at 65 to 75 degrees, and it's going to take weeks for them to germinate if they do at all. So I think that's a pretty serious problem, although it's only one among two problems that I found in the book. The other one was a botanical name that was misspelled. There was one letter wrong, and when I looked it up online, the right spelling came up right away. So that's not too much of a problem when the botanical name is misspelled just a little bit. Now, you'll notice one big difference with this book over Seed to Seed is it's organized by common name. And for the most part that works out okay, but tomatoes and turnips have nothing to do with each other. I think it would be much more useful to have tomatoes next to peppers because they're both part of the nightshade family. But peppers is way back somewhere here under P. So it's several pages back and you have to page around to find peppers. I understand why it would be listed by common name, because then you can look it up straight in the book, especially with these big letters on the side. It's like looking up the plants in a dictionary. But it's really not that much extra to have it organized by type of plant. You just look in the index and then find the page. The one strange thing I found is that the herbs are organized by the botanical genus. I don't know what the genus is for most of the herbs that I plant. Yes, it's important to know exactly what you're planting, but it's really hard to find stuff in this. Like this ocimum or ocimum, however you pronounce it, that's basil. I couldn't find basil when I first looked in this book, which is just ridiculous to me. And in the flower section, it's the same. It's organized by genus. And in the woody area, again, it's the same. It's all organized by genus. Why is just the vegetable section organized by common name and the entire rest of the book is organized by genus? That makes no sense to me. So I think that was a poor decision to organize it by common name for the vegetables. Although, to be fair, if you go in the back, this book has a very extensive index. If you're looking for something by botanical name, you can find it back here. If you're looking for something by a different common name, you can find it back here. However, this is still a bit annoying in that if you look for, again, basil, let's find basil, B-A-S, basil, right here. It says C. ocimum. It doesn't send me to the basil page. It tells me to go and look up something else in the index. Why can't it just send me to the basil page? So then I have to go over here and look up ocimum or ocimum or however you pronounce it. I don't even know how to say it. Here. Now it finally tells me page 147. I can finally go back and find it on page 147 after all of that, when I just want to find basil. All in all, I don't know which book I'd really choose, because I really like having the herbs and the flowers and everything in the Complete Guide to Saving Seeds, but I think the organization in Seed to Seed is so much better. They really did the table of contents right in Seed to Seed. And the organization of, especially the herbs onward, anything that's not a vegetable in the Complete Guide to Saving Seeds, irritates the crap out of me. Just, I can't find things without a lot of work. Once I get there, it has some useful information, but why would you do that? If you have the vegetables organized by common name, why not other things like herbs? Or if you don't have it organized by common name, at least put the page number in the index for the common name. Don't reference me to a different part of the index. All in all, I'll probably start with a complete guide to saving seeds and maybe buy seed to seed a little bit later if I get too irritated with the organization, or if I happen to plant something that they don't have, or find that it's just not detailed enough. The seed saving information really is not as detailed in the complete guide to saving seeds. So it's kind of a toss-up which one you get. I might just get both. If you want to see all the stuff I'm growing this year, check out this video up here. If you want to see more of what we're doing on our homestead, look at this playlist down here. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.